Welcome to our next episode of 6th grade math. So today we are going to be turning fractions into decimals. So to change fractions into decimals, we have already kind of discussed this already, but we use the cowboy and horse method. Okay, and the reason we do that is just so we know what goes where. Because when we use cowboy and horse, we're actually using that to divide. So division is what changes fractions into decimals. We use cowboy and horse to tell us what goes where, but we're actually just doing division. So right here, we have a visual of our cowboy and horse. So we have talked about a fraction, so it shows a fraction, and then we have the top number, the numerator, and the bottom number is the denominator. So we, again, have discussed when cowboy is riding the horse, my cowboy goes on top, my horse goes on the bottom. And again, we do that so we know what number goes where. Because in 5th grade, you were always told the bigger number goes inside. That is not really true. The top number goes inside. So when I have a division house, which I do right over here, my division house, who goes inside? The cowboy goes inside. And the horse gets parked outside. He's not going to go inside our house. When the cowboy goes inside, he is going to take off his boots and put up his hat. That's our decimals. Again, he's going to take off his boots, put up his hat. And after he does that, he's super hungry from working all day, so he's going to eat 2 donuts. And our donuts are our zeros back here. Okay? And then his last step before he gets situated is he's going to set the dinner table for his wife. So he needs a dinner plate, and then he needs a plate for both of his donuts. So those are our spaces up top. So this is just a story to help us set up our division problem. So let's do 1/5 and turn 1/5 into a decimal. Okay? So if you in your brain are thinking 1/5 as a decimal is 0.15, that is not how math works. So I'm going to label cowboy, horse, my numerator and denominator, and I am going to set up my division house. So when I set up my house, I know that my cowboy goes inside. So my horse stays outside. Again, I know that looks weird, and in your brain, you're saying 5 can't go into 1. You are correct, but that just means we're gonna have a decimal in our answer. So now, our cowboy, he just came home, so he's going to take off his boots and put up his hat, which are our decimals. And he's organized. He has to have his boots and his hat directly above each other. They can't be thrown off over to the side, so they are directly above each other. So if I look, they are straight up and down, okay? After he eats, or he takes off his boots and hat, he's super hungry. He's gonna eat 2 donuts. So those are our invisible zeros we've been talking about. So 2 donuts, because he's hungry, those are just our zeros. And then last, before he gets situated and he's gonna relax, he's gonna set the dinner table. So my 1 needs a space, and both of my zeros needs a space, or we can call those our dinner plates. And again, it's just a story to help us remember. So once we have this set up, we can do the division. And I know this is a lot of steps, but this right here, our dinner plates and our decimal, are super important for our place value. Because if our decimal gets moved anywhere, we can change a 1 into a 10 or 100 or 1,000, and that's not gonna work. All right, so let's do the division. Can 5 people sit in 1 chair? No, they cannot. So that's my first space. It's a 0. Can 5 people fit into 10 chairs? So I'm ignoring the decimal now. I just say, can 5 people sit in 10 chairs? Yes, they can, 2 times. And that gives me 10. And 10 minus 10 is 0. So if I bring down my last 0, can 5 go into 0? No. So we fill in that last space. So again, that spacing, the place value, is super important, because if we would have put our 2 here in front, that would have been 2 holes, which is not correct. So make sure you really pay attention to your place value. So now my answer is technically 0.15. 0.20. But we have some extra zeros, and this can be written multiple different ways. Technically, I don't need that back zero, so 0.2, those are the same thing because that's like an imaginary zero back there. So I could write 0.2. And since the zero in the front is the only number there, I could also just write 0.2. So all of those would be acceptable answers that you could see on a multiple choice or that you could type in for a test. All of those are equivalent. All right, let's go to the next fraction. So this time I have an improper fraction, aka the top number is bigger. My numerator is bigger than my denominator. So when this happens, I'm gonna have a whole number in my answer. Okay, so cowboy, horse, I'm gonna set up my division house. Who goes inside? Cowboy, so 40. And my horse stays outside. All right, our cowboy is super tired. He's gonna take off his boots, put up his hat. So both of our decimals straight up and down. And he's hungry, so he's gonna eat 2 donuts. But before he can relax, he needs to set the table. This one has 2 numbers in front of the decimal. So I need a place for my 4 and my 0, and then the 2 in the back. All right, once that's all set up, I am ready to divide. So my first number is a 4. So can 8 people sit in 4 chairs? No. So we gotta put that 0 so our place value is correct. Can 8 people sit in 40 chairs? Yes. 5 times, that gives me 40. When I subtract, I get 0. If I bring down, 8 cannot go into 0. Bring down again, 8 cannot go into 0. So my answer is just 5.00. So just like we just discussed, I would not technically write, sorry, let me fix that. I would technically not write my answer like this because I don't need that 0 in the front, okay? So again, I would not need that 0 in the front. So my answer would just be 5. But I could technically also write it like this. Or I could just write it at 5 wholes because we would have that invisible decimal back there. So these are all acceptable answers that you could, again, see as an answer choice or type in for a test and they would be okay. All right, last one, and this one's looks kind of weird because it's a mixed number, but we are discussing fractions to decimals. So the 2 is not gonna change. My answer is gonna have a 2 in it. So I just take that 2 and I'm gonna set it to the side right now. And we know it's a whole number and they have invisible decimals. So my answer is going to be 2 point something, whatever the 1/4 is. So all we're doing in this problem is I'm changing the 1/4, okay? And again, it's not 2.14, that's not how math works. So let's divide. The cowboy goes inside, my horse stays outside. He's gonna take off his boots and his hat. He's gonna eat 2 donuts because he's hungry. And then he is going to set out his dinner plates. Once we do that, we are ready to divide. So can 4 people sit in 1 chair? No, they cannot. So that's a 0, which is important because of place value. Can 4 go into 10? Yes, but only 2 times, which gives me 8. And that 8 needs to be in the same row as the 2. So when I subtract, I have to borrow, and that gives me 2. Bring down, 4 goes into 25 times, which gives me 20. And then I subtract and get my 0. All right, so now we have to pay attention. My answer is 0.25. But we also have that 2. So now we're gonna put that whole number back on our answer. So my whole number is 2. Oh, that's a highlighter. My whole number is 2. And then my decimal that I just got right here is 0.25, okay? So again, my whole number comes from here, and then my decimal comes from here. The 2 is essentially replacing that 0. So the 0 is not important anymore. My whole number, my decimal gives me this answer. So there's not any extra zeros this time, so 2.25 would be my final answer. So cowboy and horse shows division. Fraction to decimals, divide.